FFY26 HUD CoC grant competition. Can everyone see? I'm going to guess that's a yes, since I didn't hear anything to the contrary. So first, to set the stage for this year, there are some big changes and some serious implications in this new HUD administration's NOFO. The high-scoring collaborative applications will also get more funding, so that's consistent from previous years. We encourage you to evaluate the options available to you. Some existing programs will probably want to transition to new programs, and we encourage you to make decisions that are right for your organization and your clients. We also encourage you to communicate with us, and there are emails and phone numbers listed on this slide, although the majority of you probably have my emails already. So in this presentation, our goals are to provide information on the CoC resources that will be available to assist applicants. We're going to discuss a little bit about HUD and Notice of Funding Opportunity lingo, because we use a lot of acronyms and not everyone knows what those acronyms are. We're going to review changes to the FY26 HUD NOFO. We're going to review a local competition timeline and let you know when ongoing technical assistance will be available. Brian will be managing the chat for us during this session, and we'll hope to get to Q&A at the end. So first, we'll post information and required notifications and links to this webinar and any other presentations and the NOFO cycle schedule on our website. There will also be links to the local competition applications and detailed instructions for new project applicants, as well as eSNAP's instructions and guidance when we get to that stage. We encourage you to watch your emails and check the website often to make sure that you haven't missed anything. We'll be hosting regular technical assistance sessions. Read the NOFO. We encourage you to please read the NOFO. I understand that it's convoluted and technical and kind of boring, but this one is very different, and it's important that you know how the changes are going to apply to your agency and project. We'll do our best to provide a comprehensive synopsis, but there's no way to cover every detail that's in the 128-page document. And we've done what we can to make renewal applications as easy as possible. So what is a NOFO? NOFO stands for the Notice of Funding Opportunity. If you've been doing this work for a while, it used to be NOFA, Notice of Funding Availability. And basically, that's just a government grant RFP. It's, for us, a two-step community-wide application process to support programs in HUD-designated CoCs, and CoC is a continuum of care, with the goal of ending homelessness. So what's a CoC? It's a HUD-designated geographical area responsible for that area's homeless response system. There are more than 400 CoCs across the country. The Alaska Balance of State, also sometimes abbreviated as AK501 or AKBOS, is the one that we are a part of. We are the collaborative applicant for that CoC. And then there's also one for Anchorage, which is also called AK500. There are two CoCs that cover all of Alaska. So then we have some confusing nomenclature at the bottom. There's FFY, and there's FY, and there's SFY, and CY, and grant term. In our presentation and materials, FFY equals federal fiscal year. The HUD documentation and materials all reference FY, so FY26, whereas we call it FFY26. So FY stands for fiscal year, HUD and the government, the federal government, just assume that everyone is using FY as the federal fiscal year, whereas we know that's not the same. That's not the truth. Problem is that the state of Alaska and your organization may also use the abbreviation FY for fiscal year, and it's entirely possible that none of those fiscal years are the same set of dates. For example, the federal fiscal year is October through September. Alaska's fiscal year is July through June, and AKCH2's fiscal year, that's us, the Alaska Coalition on Housing and Homelessness, we are AKCH2. Ours is August through July. So we use FFY for the federal fiscal year and SFY for the state of Alaska fiscal year. CY is the calendar year, which is January through December. Your grant term is the 12 months from the start date to the end date of your grant agreement, which may not match any of the other fiscal years. So confusing? Yes. If you want to have a further conversation about that, please reach out. According to the HUD NOFO, the HUD's NOFO goals for federal fiscal year 2026 are to improve outcomes, create competition to improve innovation and accountability, restore balance to the continuum of care, prioritize treatment and recovery as a means to self-sufficiency, promote economic self-sufficiency, advance public safety for all, minimize trauma for vulnerable populations, and expand access based on merit and not ideology. If you'd like to look at further descriptions of these terms, then you can find them in the HUD NOFO. So differences, according to HUD, they have listed specific differences between previous competitions and this year's. Previous NOFOs have not allowed for new traditional housing or supportive service only standalone or street outreach projects. Increase in competition. 60% of the annual renewal demand will be in Tier 1 instead of previous years, which were 90% and above. Increase in equitable bonus funding. This year, $500,000 in CoC bonus project funding is available for AKCH2, for the Alaska Balance of State, which is higher than previous years as a floor has been set. Transitional housing projects have not been allowed for DV bonus project applications in the past, and they are this year. No, there will be no new combination transitional housing, rapid rehousing projects, although renewals will be allowed. Housing with shared kitchens and bathroom facilities. Previously, those were not allowed in the competition, but SROs will be a waiver for that will be considered. Reallocation or special CoC NOFO grants and rural costs. That's really just a renewal of special NOFO grants. There's only one eligible in the Balance of State Coalition and rural costs, and I will talk to that particular program participant in order to outline the changes there. Reallocation, they indicate it's a difference. It's not really. We've always reallocated. There will be a competitive repurposing of YHDP renewal funds, which basically means that if we have decided we don't want YHDP projects anymore, we can give that money back to the government. I don't think we'll be looking to do that. And then there's a preference for elderly individuals and families with disabled individuals, or elderly individuals and families, and disabled individuals and families. And those are also outlined more extensively in the NOFO, if you want to take a look at that. So there's lingo that's used every year. Those of you who've been through this before, you might remember it. New people, it's not necessarily super easy or intuitive. The collaborative application is one that uses community-wide input. It will be submitted by AKCH2 to HUD, and our collaborative application score will impact the level of funding we receive and how Tier 2 projects are selected. The local project applications are what you're going to submit to us at AKCH2. Your local competition applications will go through a rank and review process and have local priorities attached to it. And then the folks who are selected to go on the priority listing will be the ones who are responsible for entering their project application into eSNAPs. We'll talk about that in a couple bullets. The YHDP renewals and replacements, they will be competing for funding with all other projects this year. In previous years, YHDP was non-competitively renewed. They were auto-renewed, and that is not an option this year. Renewal applications and so you'll need to submit a renewal application or a new project application if you are going to be renewing your project. eSNAPS applications, once an application has been selected by the Rank and Review Committee, applicants will submit a second application in the HUD eSNAPS online portal. We'll have plenty of technical assistance to help with that. So this is the application and renewal cycle for the HUD NOFO. Project applicants applied in 2025 for projects that began in 2026 and would end in 2027. They also had to file a renewal in 2026, that's this year, and sometimes it's before a project has even started, but the renewal would have to be turned into this year for a project that would start next year and end in 28. And then next year, you will file an application to renew the project that started this year. It's a staggered timeline based on the fact that they want to be able to start funding renewal projects the day after the old project ends. The eligible applicant thresholds. While the local competition determines which projects get forwarded to HUD, and HUD funds projects on the priority list as part of the collaborative application, HUD does perform checks on those project applications submitted in eSNAPs to review project eligibility, project quality, and project renewal thresholds. Approved organizations include state or municipal government entities, nonprofit organizations, and tribally designated housing entities. HUD will not fund applications from individuals or for-profit organizations. The organizations need to be able to manage the HUD grant financials and reporting, must commit to using HMIS, the Homeless Management Information System, CE, which is Coordinated Entry Community-Wide Prioritization Lists, and service requirement agreements. There's in the FY25 NOFO, which was hung up in litigation, there were requirements that projects must include service requirements. In this one, there's points allocated for service requirement agreements. And basically, in order for a project to really seriously be considered, while the NOFO doesn't say there's a requirement, it essentially is. If applicable, they will review an organization's past performance. So that means they're going to review timely reporting, previous HUD monitoring findings, utilization of grant funding, and regular grant drawdowns. All project threshold components must be met prior to grant agreement, and there will be an enhanced risk assessment this year as opposed to previous years. In general, these are the three categories of homelessness that HUD CoC funds can be used to serve. There's been a slight change to the definition in Category 4 based on last year's changes to VAWA. Please reach out to AKCH2 if you have any questions about that. Category 3, which you see is not listed on this slide, has to do with folks who fit homelessness under another program definition. While we are continuing to advocate for including overcrowding as part of a HUD CoC competition, just know that we understand that that's a problem in Alaska. We have some of the worst overcrowding rates in the nation. But that is officially not yet a category of homelessness that HUD CoC grants are allowed to serve. So anyone who's adding comments in or questions in the chat, please know that we'll be addressing those at the end of the presentation. And thank you for interacting in that way. So there are some strategic decisions that are going to need to be made regarding new and renewal projects, in addition to complexities regarding the project selection process. We'll be scheduling these conversations individually with applicants. So these are the eligible project types according to the HUD NOFO. Transitional housing, supportive services only, street outreach, those are new this year. Permanent housing is permanent supportive housing and rapid rehousing. These will only be and then THRRH, which is transitional housing, rapid rehousing, will only be eligible for renewal. It will not be eligible for new projects. The Homeless Management Information System, only the HMIS lead agency is eligible for this one. And SSO coordinated entry grants, AKCH2 will be submitting a project renewal grant in order to help support this throughout the CoC. So this is a new slide. These are the types of expenses that are allowable in each of the project types. So new construction is allowable, although the reality is that we do not get enough grant funding in order to really support new construction in balance of state. And then I highlighted the X under rental assistance for transitional housing because we feel like transitional housing is something that will definitely be applied for this year. And we need to make sure that you're aware that rental assistance for transitional housing projects cannot be administered by faith-based organizations or by nonprofits. So there are a few additional hurdles that have to be jumped over in order to do a rental assistance in a transitional housing project. So what's the same? Just like there are fair market rent adjustments when you go to grant agreement, HUD will also adjust amounts for the supportive services and HMIS cost budget lines in renewing projects using some fancy math that they have. Those of you who have recently received your grant letters or agreements for the FFY25 grants will have seen those small changes in your grant agreement. HUD has codified that any DV or YHDP replacements get reallocated let me try that again. Any DV or YHDP replacements get reallocated only to those same populations. So if you have a DV bonus grant and you want to change it or you want to no longer have that grant, when we reallocate that money, it has to go to another project that's only serving domestic violence applicants. And then YHDP is the same way. If we're reallocating away from a YHDP program that's in existence, it can only be allocated to another program that serves transition-aged youth. So there's a place for VAWA eligible expenditures. There's also a place for rural eligible expenditures. All of AKCH2 is a rural eligible geography. And so we can talk more about how you might be able to utilize those additional costs, budget line items in your project. You can make a less than 10% budget line item adjustment in a renewal application, and YHDP projects and any leasing budget line items do not require a 25% match. So what's new? CoCs must rank all project applications. So that includes everyone. Anyone who submits a new project or renewal project will all get ranked together. There's a requirement for a code of conduct. If you do not currently have a code of conduct in the e-library for HUD, you are required to submit one. Those need to be renewed every 7 years. Unfortunately, the e-library is only updated through September of 2024, which means that if you submitted a new updated code of conduct between when you originally submitted it and now, or between September and now, it's not there. So we'll have to attach a code of conduct to your applications and eSnaps. This year, Tier 1 is set at 60% of annual renewal demand, which is equivalent to $1.4+ million in the Alaska Balance of State of our total $2.3 million annual renewal demand. I indicated earlier that's a little bit different. In previous competitions, it's been 90% plus. There are service participation requirements, although they don't call them requirements, they essentially are. And the Tier 2 project selection process will be very different, with a focus on new transitional housing and supportive services only projects. So I'm going to apologize in advance for this next slide. This is the new project selection process. And I'm not going to go over this. This webinar is being recorded, and this entire slide deck will be available on our website. I strongly recommend that you take a look at this process. Basically, what it says in here in one sentence is that renewal projects that are ranked in Tier 2 are going to have a very, very difficult time being selected for renewal. There's strategic decisions we need to make regarding renewal projects, and if you transition to a new project type, that counts you as a new project instead of a renewal project. So there are some discussions, hard conversations that are going to need to take place. As usual, we're focusing on system performance measures in this year's renewal application. Since HUD evaluates our system based on these criteria, we will use a similar evaluation. The answers provided in last year's renewal application will serve as your agency's scoring baseline this year. And there's a very different point structure listed in this NOFO that we will be working on managing. In order to be approved for any bonus projects, which is how we bring new money into the CoC, we have to prove that we are evaluating grantees and projects based on system performance measures and objective data. Most of you have heard this before, so with the help of ICA, we'll be entering these numbers this year for renewal projects. New projects probably don't have any system performance measures on your project, and therefore there's a different set of questions and point structure that we'll use for that. The NOFO requires that we score project applications with 25% of the total points specific to point in time count and system performance measures, and then 50% of the points tied to objective criteria. Our intent is to have the project scoring matrix linked, all of the matrices linked on the website by the end of this week. Our funding expectations for this year, knock on wood, but after 5 years, I think I've figured out the math on how to do this. But just to be safe, these are all tentative numbers until HUD releases the CoC available funding report, which will be more specific about what the real funding numbers are on each of these categories. So Tier 1 money is fairly safe, but the percentage in Tier 1 this year is 60% instead of 90% plus, which means that the entire competition will be more competitive, and we need to do better, even better on our collaborative application in order to do our best to make sure that renewal projects are fully funded. The DV bonus and CoC bonus amounts have both increased dramatically this year over previous years, and there's still a 25% match for all budgets. Those bullet points on the bottom of the slide, these are the types of criteria that they'll be looking at, especially for bonus Tier 2 funding. Project requirements and CoC collaborative applicant requirements that are kind of new this year. So YHDP, just a collection of all of the YHDP things I said in previous slides. They will be renewed competitively and ranked against all other applicants. Renewals and replacements are not required to provide a 25% match. Special activities are still an option and budgets can be adjusted. The information on YHDP special activities can be found beginning on page 47 of the NOFO, and talk with us if this is of interest to you. Grantees must submit a renewal application in the local competition, and YHDP grantees can submit replacement applications as a new project. That's what they call YHDP. Instead of reallocation, it's replacement, or instead of transition, it's replacement. It allows existing grantees to change program types and make budget changes. But in order to do this, we must receive a letter of support from the youth action boards, which means it's just an additional step that needs to be taken. For new projects, I don't believe any of our grantees are eligible for project consolidations this year. So we're just looking at transitions and replacements. If you're going to be interested in submitting a transition or a replacement application, please set up a time to talk that through with me as soon as possible. The transition grant process requires both a renewal project application and a new project application. So again, a few challenges in that process. Funding is for reallocating funding. It's taken from less successful or non-compliant projects and made available for new or expanded projects. New project application project types that we'll be accepting this year are transitional housing, supportive service only standalone, or supportive service only street outreach. The DV bonus, which can be used for new DV specific project applications where 100% of the participants are survivors of domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, or stalking. We will only be accepting new project applications for transitional housing for DV bonus. And then the CoC bonus, which is $500,000, a maximum of $500,000, is available for new projects, and we will accept applications for transitional housing, supportive service only standalone, and supportive service only street outreach. So this is the process. YHDP renewals and replacements are submitted by applicants. Renewal project applications are submitted by applicants, and new project applications with either bonus money, that includes DV and CoC, or reallocated money, are all submitted to AKCH2. A group of volunteers who are not applying for funding this year review, score, and rank all of those applications. Then we post that priority listing and all of the results of that competition online. Anyone whose project is on the priority listing will submit an application in eSnaps and on HUD's online application portal. At the same time that Alaska Coalition on Housing and Homelessness will be working on our CoC's collaborative application and priority listing. When a project submits an application in eSnaps, it gets picked up on the priority listing that AKCH2 ultimately submits to HUD with the collaborative application and all of your applications attached to the priority listing. The timeline for this year. The NOFO dropped on June 1. This webinar is today, and we'll have my goal is to have applications available online tomorrow, along with additional materials available before the end of this week. Local applications will be due to AKCH2 no later than midnight or 11:59 p.m. The night of July 10th. We will then consolidate all of that information, pass it along to our rank and review committee. They have until July 24th to submit their recommendations to our board of directors for approval, and then that will be published on July 24th. After that, anyone who has a project on the priority listing will begin putting their applications into eSnaps. Those will all be due in eSnaps on August 17th, which then provides a little bit of time for back and forth before AKCH2 submits the entire package to HUD on August 24th. HUD's due date is August 26th, but eSnaps is known to fail the last 48 hours to go down. And so we want to make sure that our application is turned in ahead of time. We'll be offering a lot of technical assistance, essentially Wednesdays between 2 and 3 p.m. The 24th of June, July 1st, and July 8th will all be for filling out your local competition applications, new projects, and renewals. We will open up the Zoom call and people can come in and out however it works best for them. People can also, you're encouraged to reach out to me directly to schedule one-on-one if you don't want to share your questions with everybody who might be attending that Zoom call. We'll also have technical assistance sessions for eSnaps applications, and that'll be offered July 29th, August 5th, and August 12th. eSnaps is not an intuitive portal, and sometimes I can help you out quickly instead of you trying to spend 2 or 3 hours figuring out what the heck it's asking for. All right. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing. Thank you so much for your attention and patience as we muddled our way through that. And Brian, can you help to facilitate Q&A? Oh, gosh, for the
Yep.
next 20 minutes.
Sure can, Helen, and thank you for that great overview of the program, especially with all the changes that are in this NOFO compared to the previous years. It's a lot of information to intake. I do want to remind folks that we intentionally set it up so AKCH2 staff are not on the rank and review committee. We do not score your apps. We do that so we can be impartial technical assistance helpers. So don't be afraid to ask any questions. There are no dumb questions. We're still trying to figure out all of this with you as we go along. So please do make use of those office hours, especially during the application period, to come in and just say, hey, I don't understand what this question's asking, or am I allowed to transition this grant into this type? That's exactly what that time is for. So feel free to keep putting questions in the chat. We do have a couple here. I'll just go from the start. So Helen, Jordan Nigro from Zachary Youth Center asked, do we have to transition to a new project if we have rapid rehousing for YHDP?
You do not have to. You may choose to. Um, and and a lot of those decisions and conversations will be scheduling one-on-one appointments to have those. Um, you can submit a renewal for rapid rehousing for YHDP. If your project ends up in tier 2, then it's possible and let's say almost likely that it would not be selected for funding. So, yeah, the FY25 one, the permanent housing percentage that was going to be the maximum percentage of our annual renewal demand that we could submit was 30%. The FFY26 NOFO, they don't have a maximum amount of permanent housing projects that we can submit, but the way that they're doing the project selection may encourage us to transition away from some permanent housing projects. Yeah. Email me. Let's set up an appointment.
Okay, I have another question from Maria here. This goes back to your eligible costs slide,
Mm-hmm.
where you mentioned for transitional housing projects. Could you follow up on how nonprofits and churches cannot administer rental assistance?
Right. That's actually in regulation. When the rule was changed to allow nonprofits to administer rental assistance for rapid rehousing, and permanent supportive housing, that change did not get made in the transitional housing category. So basically, if a nonprofit has rental assistance for a transitional housing grant, they will either need to change that to a master lease because they can lease units under the organization, or they will have to contract with a tribally designated housing entity or or a governmental entity, whether that's a city municipal government or a state government entity, in order to administer the actual rental assistance. And that's also probably another conversation that we might need to have one-on-one because it's going to be slightly different for everyone based on where you're located.
Okay, we have a question from Amber Morrison Waters. Do I need to register as supportive services only with the Anchorage Coalition to end homelessness if I'm going for supportive services and transitional housing funds? Currently, I am an active with an SO project.
So, Amber, if your project is located in Anchorage, then that will be a question that you need to ask the Anchorage Coalition to End Homelessness. And if Brian could drop their website into the chat, that would be great. Amber, if you're looking to create a project outside of the municipality of Anchorage, then you don't have to register. You just would need to submit a new project application by the deadline to AKCH2. Oh, Jessica's online. She just dropped her email in the chat. Feel free to reach out to Jessica. Next.
And also, yeah, in case there's other folks from Anchorage on the line, so that website's great for the Anchorage Coalition. They are also holding technical assistant hours that are different from ours. So if you go to that website, you can see that schedule as well. There are no other questions in the chat. I will take a moment here just in case some folks are typing, and we're happy to stay on to for the rest of the hour too if folks want to stick around. But while we're waiting for more questions, I just want to remind we will be posting these slides and the recording of this, so the video recording of this meeting, onto our CoC website, which we'll put the address to that in the chat here in a couple of minutes. All of this should be up by the end of the day, and then all of the application materials should be up on that website by the end of day tomorrow. So make sure you're checking back on that site as we add more materials that may be helpful during your application process.
Brian and Helen, can I ask a question? This is Mandy.
Of course.
Yep.
Great, thanks. I couldn't find the hand emoji, sadly. Okay, I understood about 14% of everything that you just talked about beyond the years and the acronyms. I got all of those, and I've been doing this for many, many years now. But what I'm hearing you basically say is that if you had a rapid rehousing program and you are a nonprofit that administered rental assistance, it's not going to be as easy as we thought to just transfer to a transitional housing program and still administer rental assistance, right? So we have to think of something different.
That's accurate.
Okay.
That is an accurate interpretation of what the new what it is. Yes.
So what does transitional housing do? Like just supportive services?
Well, transitional housing, you can find another quasi-governmental entity in order to administer it, or a tribal entity to
Mhm.
administer it, or you can lease as the organization, you can lease the unit and people can stay in it. And 24 months is still the amount of time. So the amount of time you can provide housing supports is the same. The method by which the housing supports get paid for will be slightly different.
Okay, so then if I'm hearing you correctly, it's instead of giving person A, $1,500 in a month to go pay their landlord, we rent the unit ourselves and we just put person A in there with the money that we're now getting from CoC to lease the unit.
Yes. Yes, with an asterisk. That is how I understand it.
Okay. Okay, can you lease your own units? Can you own them?
Huh, interesting. I don't know. I'm going to have to look that one up.
I'm gonna have to say that's a no, but oh, Jennifer has her hand up.
Hi, everybody. I will just say that agency is a quasi-governmental agency, and we are the named applicant for some very old grants that are called sponsor-based rental assistance. And that was to accommodate the regulations that were in place before they got changed. And so we have some SRA groups. We don't have any SRA left in the balance of state, but we do have a grant with Tanana Chiefs, so we are a pass-through agency for them. Just know that if you are looking at that route, to get in touch with us as early as possible, because while AHFC loves to be a helper, we are a bureaucracy, and so it takes us a little bit of time. So might be better to do a master lease than ask AHFC to be the bank for your rental assistance. But I'm always available.
Okay. Thank you so much, Jennifer. We appreciate you. Jordan.
So for transitional living, can they not have their own leases?
Correct. I think.
With private landlords, they cannot. Because last time we did this, it seemed like they could. But they've changed the NOFO since then, so.
They have indeed.
So
Because that's a huge change. Like, yeah, okay.
Except
So-
for the fact that, Jordan, your fiscal sponsor is a TDHE.
Well, right, but most of the people that are living in apartments are not THRHA. So they're leased to individuals with private landlords.
And
so if we turn this over, I'm gonna have to.
well,
all
wait a
those
minute.
kids-
So your specific situation is very different than most of the others. So let's schedule a call to have
Okay.
a conversation about that.
Okay.
yeah, I seem to think that actually, Jordan, you might be able
You are
to transition a lot easier than the others since you are a government entity. It's about the back end administration, not if like the clients are, through THRJ or whatnot. So we'll chat about it.
Okay, Kita, I think you're next.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to know, if we don't lease units, for in transitional housing, if we don't lease units, how would we go about the funding? We have, in-shelter space that we utilize for transitional housing. So there aren't any units to lease for us. So how will we go about that?
Oh, that's operations. Your budget line item is operations
Okay.
instead of rental assistance. Easy peasy on yours.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much.
Aaron.
I see here again. We have a rapid rehousing slash tea house, a transitional housing joint project.
Mm-hmm.
And so would that need to not be renewed? Instead, it would be a new project, just tea house? What does that look like? Or is that a conversation we have later?
That's a conversation we should have one-on-one. For
Okay.
anyone who is currently operating a THRH, it could be renewed if you wanted it to be. Or it could be a new project application that you transition to one or the other of
Okay.
those project types.
But
And
could we, sorry,
go ahead.
could we do rapid rehousing only as a nonprofit without, or we'd
You-
have to get a government entity?
Nope, you can do rental assistance and rapid rehousing as a nonprofit. Um, that will be, but where that might end up in that entire new process by which projects are selected, is it could impact how you decide to move forward, and that's a one-on-one conversation.
Okay, I emailed you. We'll get to that on the
Excellent.
budget. Thanks, Helen.
Anyone else? Okay, so I know it was a lot of information. I stumbled over a couple different slides. If it's confusing to you, it's not you, it's them. And we are available to walk through this. My intent for our first TA session next week will be to go over the first part of it. I will go over that project selection slide step by step, but I think that's going to take a lot longer than we had available with everything else that we had to cover on this particular webinar. I look forward to speaking with many of you one-on-one. I look forward to seeing folks in TA's technical assistance TA sessions over the course of the next couple months and talking with you about your projects, whether they're renewal or new. And let's work together to get as much funding into the balance of state, Alaska, to support our relatives as we possibly can. All right. And with that, I think I'm going to give you 9 minutes of your day back, which I definitely didn't think was going to happen. So thank you, everyone, for your attendance, and we look forward to working with you.